Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Dust to Double Doors podcast. Today, I've got Lucas with me, replacing Liam Slevin, who unfortunately is not able to make the show. For our guest today, we've got Damian daps Steele, who's going to be joining us live out of Blast, Copenhagen, from probably the Liquid practice room. He and his team are gearing up as they're going to play the playoffs or whatever actual real section of Blast happens starting tomorrow. So, he's going to be a little bit busy with that. We've got a lot of stuff that we're excited to cover today. We're going to be talking with daps about his career. We're going to talk with daps about his, time on Liquid, what we can expect from the team, and then we're going to cover all the general news that we've neglected to cover since the last episode of the podcast. So, daps, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So we've obviously got a lot of things that we want to talk about, but I think that we should just try and get your stuff out of the way first, just to kind of get a better understanding of how you've kind of gotten to this point. You've constantly floated between becoming a coach and a player and moving back and forth between that. You're known and very heralded as being someone that is very good at formulating rosters and creating them. You're now probably in one of the higher positions of coaching, with Liquid being one of the best solitary North American teams. How is this coaching experience different from a lot of your previous coaching experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the only other team I really coached was EG. Like, I wouldn't count I know it says I coached on Energy, but that was more so just me, like, considering quitting. I wasn't like actually coaching really.
Okay.
I was more so there for like moral support, and I remember I think Fugly tried to IGL and I tried to like help him a little bit, but the Energy one wasn't like a real coaching experience.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like my second coaching team officially, I'd say. In terms of like what's different, I mean, obviously Liquid has a better roster coming in. Like on EG, it was more like trying to save the project rather than coming into a team that already has like pretty good pieces. So I'd say that's probably the main difference. In terms of like organizational things, I don't really want to get into EG stuff as I've already said my piece on EG.
Yeah.
So
understandable. We don't need to make this podcast a bashing other orgs one. So you've been through a number of teams. You've almost run through almost every major North American team: Optic to NRG to Cloud9 to Gen G to EG. Being as you were a player, kind of bouncing around and going into a lot of different team environments, do you think, and playing with so many different players, do you think that's been so much more helpful to you as a coach?
I think it has. And I mean, even though I've been through a lot of organizations, a lot of those were like the same team, but we just like went to a new organization. But yeah, I mean, I've played with like most North American players. I think Stewie was like one I didn't play with.
Yeah.
And then I only played with Twist on like some Team Canada team a long time ago. But I played with like most NA players, I'd say. And I think it definitely helps give me like a different perspective. And I played with some European players too, and I played with like Ben Ted as well. So I've played with like people from kind of multiple different regions, and I think it gives me a slight edge, I'd say. But it's definitely nice like playing with a bunch of different people.
So you're heading into now your second season of as this Liquid head coach. You kind of joined after Adren left, and a somewhat shocking move, I think, to a lot of outsiders. We didn't really we saw Adren come back, and he was one specific type of coach, being there to kind of be more of a personality coach, a glue guy, someone that's going to help and further the team. What are you doing, I think, differently, or what's the mood been in asking you to improve this team?
I mean, I can't really speculate too much on how Eric coached, to be honest. I don't think it was really a change because Eric's like a quote unquote bad coach or anything like that. It was just like, I think it was just more so like they worked with him for a really, really long time, and maybe just having like a different perspective would help. I'd say in terms of what I do different, it's hard to say because again, I don't know what Eric did, so
Yeah.
it's hard for me to really comment on that. But I mean, in terms of what I'm doing now, the main focus early on has just been like making sure that we're on the right track and building a foundation. Because even like for Cologne, we only had about like 7-8 days of practice before that event. So
Right.
going over like 6 maps with, a stand-in is like a lot of work. And we were doing like 13, 14-hour days some nights, just trying to get everything covered. And we started from scratch too. Like everything that Liquid had before was pretty much just like forgotten. And like we've taken some stuff back and like added it from what they had before, but we literally started from ground zero, just building back up, building back up. And then even like before this event, we only had 5 days before this event, so we really haven't had that much practice still. And then we're doing the best we can, but it's just like we haven't had a chance to be like super creative yet. But like I think our foundation is getting better and better every day. And in terms of like interpersonal things, like so far the team's been like really good, receptive to everything. Yakinder and Nick are the main idea guys out of the players, so both of them having like big voices in the team has really helped.
Yeah. No, I think it's pretty invaluable when you have a European import like Yakinder, who seems to also language not really much of an issue. I think he joked that he learned his English through TikTok.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I saw that. I could be totally wrong. He could be playing a joke because he seems to be doing that too much. But yeah, it seems like that's pretty helpful, obviously.
Yeah.
So you were talking about the different ideas that you've kind of learned through different iterations in your career. Talking about playing with Ben 10 and stuff. You did touch on Yekindar. Obviously, he's like a well-renowned talent mechanically and things like that. Can you kind of touch on like the philosophy differences that like these EU talents are bringing in? Because like this is becoming like kind of a recurring theme now. Is there like something that these EU talents are bringing that like we're not seeing on the outside, besides just the talent?
I mean, I think Yakinder's situation's a little more unique because he played with James.
Yeah.
And just from talking with Yakinder, like it's like it's not necessarily that they're bringing things that are like brand new to us, or it's like we don't know it, but it's just like the structure or like the process of how they do things is different. And I think I don't want to go into too much detail, but I think it just like helps to see things that Liquid has done before, even things I've like most of the things I've had on my past teams in my career, but maybe it was just like structured a little differently, or there was some like process that we got to it in like a more efficient manner. That's like a very general way to put it.
Okay.
But I'd say it's nice to have like a bit of a stylistic change in like how to approach practice.
That's fair. Did you have any effects regarding like during the off season, the whole overshadowing, not really knowing what's going to go on with Yekinar long term? Did that affect your off season preparations or anything like that, or was it just full focus on the task at hand kind of thing?
I'd say just full focus on the task at hand. You know, obviously it would suck if like we can't get Yakinder or whatever, but
Sure.
it's we're just focused on like we had him for Cologne and we have him for this event, and
Yeah.
we're just gonna keep going like with that in our heads pretty much.
Okay.
I feel like eventually the lines that we're going to be hearing from you and the rest of Team Liquid is, we had him once for Cologne and we had him once for Blast. We're going to have him once again for EPL, and we're going to have him once again for the RMR, and we're having him once again for the Major.
Yep. Permanent stand-in.
Just permanent. At this point, I don't know how it's going to affect the HLTV ratings with you guys only having the 4 players, because Yakinder technically can't be counted in those rankings yet. Oh, have they actually added Yakinder?
I think
there we go.
Finally. I think we got the points.
Let's go.
Yeah, there was a big discussion of like how many games until it's a stand-in and no longer, et cetera, et cetera.
Is it the SDY syndrome? Because SDY isn't he like still is he on trial or like full member or like what's that deal?
He's something. He's something. That's all I know.
Well, didn't they say they're using him till the major or something?
Yeah.
But it's who knows. I feel like at this point you guys have to use your Kinder to the major. So same situation.
That whole situation. It's easy to just like kind of forget. It's like, he's just a part of the team. Oh wait, no, he's still a stand-in. Like it's just that's how it is with SDY too. Like I always forget.
But, love it.
Yeah, gotta love the behind the scenes. So it's your second season with Liquid, as a head coach. How do you feel? Obviously, like this is your second opportunity as a coach. You know, we're not counting energy. Just comfort wise, etc. You talk about you played with all these guys prior. How do you maintain that balance and everything? How are you kind of just fitting in as this concept of a coach?
I'd say I'm just like I've read some books and I've watched a lot of TED Talks on coaching and just like before I got the job, just trying to like, see all the perspectives of coaching and trying to learn like different strategies and like what to apply. And like I played sports too and had a bunch of coaches who, some of them would just like scream at you and yell at you and like bench you for the rest of the game if you messed up. And then I had other coaches who were more like chill and prefer to have more of like a friendly environment. So I guess since I haven't really had a season yet with Liquid, like I literally was just there for Cologne and then player break instantly. So I say this is my first like real season to sort of like over time apply things that I've learned and just try and like apply a strategy that is meant for the team, and like tailor it to like each player instead of just like coming in and being like, oh, I watched this and I'm just gonna apply this without actually considering like the effects of it. So I'd say right now it's more so just still figuring out the tactics with like Nitro and Yakinder. Like we're in still like early stages, I'd say. And then as time goes on, if like issues come up, then I'll approach those with however I feel is best. But so far it's been really good. It's been a really good experience.
I think that's always one part that seems hard is how do you manage egos? I think when we look at Team Liquid, everyone is probably some of the most famous North American players that we have. Naf, who doesn't seem like a big ego guy, he's very quiet all the time. Doesn't have that big of a personality. But I think Elige is obviously like there are known things of where he's been saying like he needs to be a better teammate, he needs to do this, and he obviously is heralded as one of the best NA players. And you also have Yakinder, who's coming in as this like almost European superstar to handle in there. How do you try and manage egos within the team and make it more focused on like we all need to work together? There can't be one special person.
I think something that maybe I'm doing that they didn't do before I was in the team was anytime there's like an issue or disagreement, we just all talk about it as a team so nothing builds up, when people bottle things up and resentment starts to come in. Because like the truth is like Elige is a guy who is pretty logical. So if you make an argument to him and it makes sense, then he's not like there's no ego. It's the same thing with Yakinder. He like very opinionative and if he's doesn't agree with something, he's gonna say like, oh, I think you should do it this way and this way, and then if it makes sense, there's not gonna be any like pushback, right? And anytime there is like a disagreement, there hasn't been like too many, but we just talk about it as a group and there's no like egos there or anything like that.
There you go. I think that's a very healthy way of handling disagreements within the team. Have you had a lot of those challenges so far in the team, or has it kind of been pretty easy? Or you don't have to answer the internal disagreements and behavior of the team. I understand that's too much.
No, I mean I'm not gonna go into like details. I mean there hasn't been anything where it's like people are super pissed off about something. I mean there's like obviously going to be disagreements on some things, but we've come to the main focus for me is like making sure we come to a resolution on everything and make sure we nip it in the bud right away rather than not bringing it up and then a week later it's like, oh, why are you like tilted today? And then it's like, oh, we didn't resolve like X thing a week ago. So it's like anytime like I notice something is like bugging somebody, I'll just we talk about after practice and just deal with it instead of letting things build up.
That's a good way.
Good stuff. That is proper. I'd say that's proper. That's proper team building, honestly. And like, it's really sad that it's so uncommon in our region. It's just like so much letting it settle and then simmer, and then a lot of passive aggression, and yeah, it turns into a bad situation. Definitely.
Yeah, like I'd say the stigma that like people on this team have huge egos and they're not willing to listen is not true. I'd say, like, if I say like, oh, I think this is good and I have an actual argument for it, then they're gonna be like, yes. They're not gonna be like, well, I won a grand slam and you didn't, and I'm not gonna fucking listen to you. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
Like, no one on this team is a psychopath, so we're fine.
I think that's good. That if the baseline is no one is a psychopath, currently doing better than 99% of NA teams.
Got no crazies on the roster. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good. Looking at the other rosters, EG and Complexity specifically, other tier 1 oppositions that also brought in some EU talents, Halzerk and Nealon. Can you kind of walk me through your perception on those moves and just kind of the general thoughts on both the transfers? Obviously IGL and OP so vastly different.
I mean, I think Halzerk's good. Like, I remember watching him at Dignitas a little bit, and it seemed like he always held his own or carried even, like most of their games. Like, I think he was one of the main reasons Dignitas had success or like decent results at times. So I think Halzerk's a really good pickup for Complexity. And then, I mean, I don't know much about Nealon, but I've asked like a couple players about him, and they all say he's like a very hardworking IGL, and I think that's like sort of pretty common in the CIS region, is just hardworking players in general. So I think as long as like his English is good enough and he doesn't have like an issue with that, then I think again it's a really good pickup for EG as well in that case.
Sure.
What I think is so interesting about the Halzerk pickup has been that like Complexity is now playing more how they used to play with when they had OC back on the like Extra Salt team, right? Like and now obviously you guys have OC and you know what he's capable of and you know his ability. That team is so structured around having an opper, and that was so instrumental to their play, and Junior just couldn't fit that role. So I'm really curious and kind of excited to see how not only Halzerk performs at the individual level, and I almost don't particularly care about his stats. I think it's more how well does he fit into JT's system. And if he fits really well, then everyone else can succeed, which I think we're also starting to see as evidenced by that upset over Navi, right? Like that doesn't happen at any other time, I think, with Junior and how they were trying to like adapt their entire system to make him fit.
Yeah,
and I wonder how. I mean, you guys almost lost to Complexity, which a little bit of a surprise there. So like
they're playing,
now going up against
well.
them, yeah. So what, I mean, just against them, what were your takeaways from that?
I mean, from what I know, I think when OC was on, well, I don't think they were Complexity, they were Extra Salt. Yeah, I think when OC was on that team before, he was like the second IGL, to my knowledge at least, and I assume, I don't want to assume, but Junior may or may not have done that. So it's like if they replace OC with Junior, and a Junior isn't filling that second IGL role, then it's probably like Ricky, I'd say, like probably Floppy or Fang who would fill that second. But
yeah,
you know, it's a pretty big loss if you lose OC and he's like second IGL and your opper who's like playing pretty well, and then if Junior wasn't doing that, then it's like a pretty big dynamic change. So I don't know if Halzerk does that for them, but I assume he has a lot to say as like a European player and like the experiences he has.
Has OC kind of grown to become a lot more vocal? I know that when he was on the Extra Salt rosters, he was okay with talking, but he wasn't. And then when he first joined Liquid, he wasn't necessarily the most talkative individual.
I think when you're playing with like overall like players that have way more experience or tier 1 players, you're gonna have like a less of a voice for sure. But it's definitely something we're working on, because like I think it's very important for your opera to have a pretty big voice in the team, especially on CT sides. like they can dictate a lot on their own and just like how they feel the game's going for themselves. So it's something we know that OC's capable of, and I think it's just something that takes a bit of time because we just completely changed the whole system a month ago, right? So it's gonna take time for everybody, but I think we're on a good path for sure.
Well, that's good. I mean, I guess that segues right into my question. Just kind of closing out this segment. Would you say that North America in general, Liquid, EG Complexity, just the whole system, the whole ecosystem, have we as a region done enough to close the gap? Would you think? I know there was some high hopes at the beginning of Blast. So
Um, you're just talking about like us and complexity specifically.
yeah, I mean, just in general, you know how the region's kind of lagging behind EU. We saw Twist kind of take off to greener pastures. Like, do you think we're still in that place? Do you think we're any closer to kind of getting that gap kind of bridged, or do you think we're still kind of lagging behind?
I mean, if we're comparing ourselves to Europe, we'll always be behind
Okay.
Europe, like no matter what.
No
There's just
matter
too
what.
many. I mean, like there can be like 2 or 3 NA teams that could potentially get back. Like we had 3 NA teams in the top 10 at one point, I'm pretty sure. But
Okay.
it's possible, but it's like overall as a whole, there's not going to be as many competitive teams, especially with how the ecosystem is now. There's not enough organizations anymore to provide the support because I made a tweet about it a long time ago. It's like the
That was after the
experiences.
Orglis project, yeah?
Yeah, it's like early 2015 when like I was on Liquid initially, you know, NA teams would just get destroyed by European teams. Like if we
Right.
got 10 rounds versus Prime Fnatic, that was an accomplishment for us.
Yeah.
And it's gone to the point where like teams in ECL don't even have the experience of getting destroyed like we did. Like we could go to like 4 or 5 events and learn a ton, and that like sort of built today's top NA players, right?
Right.
Whereas like if I'm an ECL today, it's like I might go to Europe once for the ECL event, play like tier 2, tier 3 European teams, still lose because they're way better still. The tier 2, tier 3 European teams, and then it's like that's my only event the whole year. I'm not gonna learn shit from that, and I don't even get to play versus like Navi or anything like that. So it's it's just a rough system for teams coming up.
Well, it's interesting. I think Moses had a tweet about this where he was saying like we need to start bringing more balance back to NA for these events, and it might make it easier, right? That if we have EPL in America again, then you're going to allow all of these European teams to come over. They'll have to practice either their European teams or the NA teams. And then NA can get more of a flavor and more of an understanding of how these players are working and everything like that. Do you think that is something that can kind of bridge that gap a little bit? Or is there like
Yeah,
more things we need to do?
I think if the ecosystem goes back to how it was in like 2018, 2019, then
Yep.
it's fine. Like I don't even need more than that. That's like
Yeah.
that would be enough for like teams to get enough like 'cause there was at least lands in NA back then too. So your good
Right.
European teams would come and practice for like a week in NA, right? And then they'd
Yeah.
get scrims and versus like worse teams because they have to, and then they'd play FPL too, and like even just missing that exposure in itself is pretty rough. Because there would be like CS Summit on LAN, and then there'd be a DreamHack, and then there'd be IEM Dallas, ESL New York,
Yeah.
you know, even just like missing all those, and on top of that, Pro League, NA Pro League doesn't exist anymore, and then there's not ECS anymore,
Yeah.
and then there's no Star Ladder qualifiers anymore. Um,
It's really
there's
killer.
there's not there's like pretty
Quite a
much
lot.
nothing. Yeah, like you're missing because even ECS League was pretty good for some of the lower tier teams who'd
It was.
qualify to it, right?
Yeah.
So you're missing like all this stuff that used to be there, and I think maybe NA Pro League could be a start, but still, like you could have NA Pro League and just have like every team that's not European go to that. Like you could have like it used to be like 2 Australian teams, I think, in NA Pro League.
It was
It was
like
like Winter Fox
Renegades.
and
Oh God, Winter Fox. That's a throwback.
yeah,
Well,
I mean
it was
there's a lot of teams.
Oh, absolutely. Do you think we need to have that again to make that domestic pro league again like come back, where it used to just be that online system, the top pro teams, and everyone be playing in it? Or do you think Valorant's kind of taken too many players away and taken more money out of the scene?
Valorant's definitely affected it, but I mean, when players leave, it like other players will fill the void eventually.
Yep.
It doesn't really matter that the Valorant players left at this point, to be honest, just because like they were good in their time, or like they were sort of in that tier 2 space, and now that tier 2 space is open, and players will always fill the void, but not if there's not enough like because even those tier 2 players that left for Valorant, they had the good ecosystem coming up, right?
Right.
And
Right.
they were even a lot of them were even still struggling to make it to tier 1 with the good ecosystem. So now
Sure.
the good ecosystem's gone. So now a lot of these players are even having a hard time getting to like that tier 2 level that the players who left were in. So yeah, it's something where like if the ecosystem comes back at least like 80%, then those players will like better players will like people will fill the void pretty much, and it'll
Yeah.
just like the cycle will continue.
All right.
Yep. I don't think we need to get. Yeah, I think you're right. Like we don't need to be so fixated on like who left and if they come back, because like the time will move on and new talent will come, and we're already starting to see that anyway. Like there are even though maybe like structurally and as far as like ecosystem is concerned, maybe it's not the best in NA. Like there are some 17 to like 21-year-old talents right now, like in advanced and ECL, that like mechanically and things like that. There's a lot to
I
like look at and be excited about.
I mean like one example, and I'm not even trying to be like controversial or anything here. It's like even when the iBuyPower players got banned, it like opened up the way for even players like myself and like even people like Elige and Nath and
Sure.
stuff. Like a good team from NA got wiped off the map, and then
Yep.
it just opened like floodgates for like the people who are almost tier 1 at that point anyways.
Yeah.
So it's like it
Point.
increased or it sped up the progression of those teams because they left that void open,
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's interesting. That's an interesting like philosophy in the sense of like, because like leaving the floodgates open for new talent can like obviously benefit the scene, but then like you also want to like have the talent there already to kind of help the not so talented talent get better. So it's like, we look at like Brazil in a sense as kind of like helping NA a lot at the lower tiers, like helping the teams get better. Like what happens, because we're seeing this conversation of like domestic pro leagues come up, maybe put Brazil by itself. And it's like, okay, you give more NA teams opportunity, but you're looking at this season of ECL and advanced, and like it's already pretty void of like the floor is not really that high as far as like talent. And we're talking about like potentially weak ECL season. So it's like if we take Brazil out, like does that actually improve us? I don't know. It's an interesting concept.
I don't think they should take Brazil out.
Right.
If they did like an NA Pro League, it should be like the Americas Pro League, like
Sure.
NA and South America, because like even there's Brazilian teams in NA Pro League and ECS when I was playing
Sure.
Yeah.
2018, 2019, and having those teams, like being able to scrim those teams is pretty important, especially for like the lower tier NA teams.
Sure. And just getting a different set of ideas and stuff, just hitting at you from different angles and stuff. You don't want to play the same types of teams and stuff. You don't grow. So yeah, I agree. I guess kind of moving away from this, like talking about present stuff, the RMRs. Obviously, you guys are already slated to kind of pit yourself against the other qualifying teams, so you don't have to worry about that stuff. Qualifier 1 came through. We saw former team Gaming Gladiators.
Which
Go ahead.
one second, we need
Yeah.
to move on from having like X team.
I
You don't
agree.
sponsor them anymore. Stop having your X sponsor
Yep.
being your team name. It actually like fucking annoys me so
Yeah.
much because they don't pay you and they're still getting name credit on your team. Stop
Right.
it. Just come up with like whatever. Go back to like B's Money Crew. Make it like
Yeah.
Danny's Money Crew. Whatever.
Yeah.
I don't care. But
Shooter
just like
guys.
just stop. It's
Yeah.
so
And just
annoying.
continue just go Orgless.
Orgless.
Oh my
trend.
god, we had has had like 20 different Orgless teams. I think if
Yeah.
you look up on HLTV Orgless, it literally is just like 5 different ones. There's like one.
Right.
It's you. There was FNS's one when he did.
Orgless.
Yes, the Flashpoint Orgless. Fuck.
Yep.
There was
Yep.
like
Yeah,
at least
we
one or
literally
two before.
we took that logo from them. I messaged FNS. I'm like, we're jacking your old Orgless logo when I did that.
Nice.
God damn it.
Okay, so so Complexity and Orgless make it through. What other teams? So there's 4 slots left. What other teams do you think are like, heavy favorites to kind of earn it? Because I know there's so many teams. I'm not saying you can nail it down, but what teams do you see kind of being favorites for that?
Let me look. I'd
Yeah.
say top 2 left would be like EG main team should make it. Even though people meme EG a lot, like the main team should make it pretty easily, I'd say.
They haven't tried yet. That's
then-
a good thing to point out for anybody who doesn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's a chance. I mean, I don't want to say that, but like I think EG and ATK should be shoe-in.
Yeah.
For like 2 of the spots at least. Then after that,
Team
well,
1?
I guess the other EG teams can't play in it.
No. Which is unfortunate, but
Yeah.
After that, it's kind of up in the air, I'd say.
Sure.
I'd say, well, Team 1's doing NA.
Yeah, Team 1's doing NA.
Are they the only Brazilian team doing NA?
They are, which makes the South American qualifier like fucking deadly. Like,
oh yeah, it's brutal.
Fluxo, 00 Nation, 9Z. I think 9Z already qualified.
Like yesterday's like 2 finals, it was Oplano, it was 9Z, it was like Fluxo. It was just like 4 stacked teams that like all certifiably could have like had a real opportunity of making it an NA, and it's like they're just all in the gauntlet right now.
Yeah. KC Sports. KC Sports.
Sports.
I actually really like that team with RCF, Honda, and Steele, and Leo DRK. That's not bad. That's actually pretty solid.
So you said ATK.
ATK and like the main AG team should be like 100%, and then Team 1's Team 1 usually makes it.
Yeah.
After that, I'd say the last spot's up in the air. Like it could be a lot of. I don't know a lot about a lot of these teams.
Yeah.
Can we see Bad News Bears again making it to fucking RMR?
What's Bad News Bears called right now? I don't even see them on their answer.
I forget what they are.
Are you talking about Pluto? Are you talking about Pluto and Momo? Like
yeah, Pluto and Momo's team.
That's Vendetta.
Okay.
Yeah.
See if they can run it back.
Shit.
Pakistani power to the Americas RMR.
After Team 1, I don't know. I'd say it's a toss-up.
It's definitely a weird situation there. I think like you have so many different teams that could make it.
They made it pretty far.
This is controversial. I like Timberman on the skill wise for being able to do it. I think it's a hard one because Timberman obviously I have a bunch of history associated with them. As far as I understand, and as far as like apparently some admins have been understanding, they've been good boys. They haven't caused any trouble in this last year. They've paid their penance. So we'll see. But I casually would be optimistic if they made it. They could, and if they really wanted to like sit down and practice and prepare, who knows? They could actually make a dent at this thing.
I agree fully. Another team I was looking at, I know like I don't want to get too high on the hype train just because I have been pretty hard ahead of Advanced, but Limitless just because of Bobby, like stamina.
Oh yeah,
I think that would be a nice test. I mean, it's wide open. Brazen as well. That's another one I could see sneak in there. They got pretty deep this last attempt. So, but yeah, I don't think they'd really go further beyond making it, but it'd be nice to see. But yeah. So you said ATK and EG for sure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. So kind of pivoting away because kind of really all we got in that regard. I kind of wanted, me personally, I wanted to ask you about your experience with Lucid, the analyst. He's been kind of attached to you for some time now. Obviously, I don't know exactly when you guys first linked up. Feel free to kind of explain to me how all of that kind of came to your relationship with him. But other than that, can you kind of walk me through like what he provides individually, like as an analyst? And then not only that, can you kind of talk about the importance of what an analyst brings, and like how important it is for you as a head coach to be able to lean on somebody like that, and that's kind of potentially why you guys have had such a long relationship together?
Sure. I mean, on the Orgless project, it was mainly just because usually when I like try out a coach or analyst in my career, it was mainly I find like a demo or two and I just see like what their prep is like or just like what they take from a game. And that kind of gives me a good sense if they have like a good mind for the game. So I think considering Lucid's experience, I think he sees the game pretty well. Because I don't think he was a player for very long either.
All right.
Or so it's like that was a good sign for him early on. And then in terms of like being an analyst for Liquid, I'd say currently he's mainly just helping with preparation for matches. Um, in terms of like ideas for what we're doing in game, like I'd say if he was also bringing stuff in terms of like strategic things, it's just too many chefs in the kitchen at that
Yeah.
point. Because right now, like personally, I always believed my whole career that like it's very important, especially for the IGL, to be the main voice in a team because he's the one in the game all the time. A coach only has 4 30-second pauses. Like the impact a coach can have during a live match is very low compared to an IGL. Because a coach can't make any mid-round calls either, and that's super important too. So the main goal early on is just making sure that like Nitro and then like all the players understand the system fully, and they're not being like shown stuff from like a bunch of outside perspectives that can't be there during the live game. So that's for Lucid. He's mainly just doing prep for us, and it's nice to have like an extra set of eyes on prep because I'll always do prep for matches, and then some of the other players do prep for matches, and then it's nice to like compare the notes, because it's like if all of us see something a team's doing and then he confirms it almost, then we know it to be true essentially. But other than that, he's mainly just doing prep at the moment.
Cool.
How impactful have you thought that analysts are on the team in order to be able to take some of that responsibility of prep of that analytical work against those teams? Because a lot of people sometimes think that it's not really needed. Coaches can mostly handle that. I think the days have kind of bygone a little bit about coaches also being the team manager, also booking flights, also doing all of this stuff, and now you're kind of dividing up the labor a little bit more.
I think it's I think if you use it correctly, it's pretty good. I definitely think like coaching staff in a game like Valorant is more involved just because it's a constant changing meta for sure. But I mean in CS it definitely helps, especially with like busy travel schedules.
Yeah.
Because like I remember back in the day on Energy, like when Chet was my coach, him and I were literally having to watch like demos on flights and stuff going to the next event because of how many events we had. So it's not the travel schedule isn't as bad as it used to be, but I think definitely having an analyst helps a lot, especially when like you're in the middle of a tournament and maybe it's like back-to-back matches and like you couldn't do prep for a team because you didn't have time to. Like it definitely can help a lot, especially for live tournaments.
Yeah, and you're talking a little bit about like these busy travel schedule and doing all of that. I mean, obviously that puts a huge grind on you guys, and we've heard about how burnouts become such a big thing. We're constantly hearing about how these players and every member of the team needs to have these breaks. Do you think that having more of that backroom staff is kind of alleviating that, I don't know, the mental wear on you guys?
Yeah, a bit. It definitely offsets it during live events, like I said.
Yeah.
But I'd say I generally have time to do everything that I need to do. Like I don't have like if I have to
where do you
stay.
find it? Can you tell me how to find all the time to do everything I need to do? I feel.
I mean, if I have to stay in the practice room a little later till midnight, then I'll do it. It's not like a big deal for me.
Okay. Grinder.
Damn. I don't know.
That's-
I don't know.
I don't know if I can stay in the office until midnight each time.
Oh.
I think I tried doing that in finance, and I was dead after like about 2 years of that.
I mean, it's definitely harder. at the start, just because we have changed so much and we're adding so much, and
Yeah.
over time it gets a little easier. But it's just being a coach is essentially being an IGL in a way. Like the work is pretty similar, just I don't have to play, which is nice. So I get some extra time because I don't have to DM and keep my aim up or anything like that.
So that's an interesting comment you just made. You don't have to DM. You just mentioned like kind of how you're front loading everything because you're getting everything kind of figured out. How do you find that balance if you are a player, especially like now you're talking about a weak ecosystem, so now you probably have to try a little harder to get sought out. You have to try a little harder to get the right not just an organization, because there's a lot of bedroom orgs out there. Get the right organization, right? um how do you balance that, if you're 18, 19, um probably finishing high school, maybe going to college, there's a lot of life, internal, external variables there. How do you balance that? Obviously, you were a player, now a coach. Kind of walk me through that.
You're talking about like when players are coming up and
Yeah,
like
yeah. You were
they're.
just talking about, yeah. You just mentioned, I stay
I'd
a little late
say,
because you're front loaded.
yeah. I mean, when I was on denial, like
Yeah.
we weren't paid anything. Like our contracts we were promised a gaming chair as payment, and we never even got the gaming chair. So
Didn't
our
even give you
one,
the chair, dude.
I think Fugly got one just because it was his birthday, but I think the denial didn't give us anything else.
Wait, that's actually,
Wow.
I'm sorry, that's actually great. We played for a gaming chair. That is the most
And then they
classic NA
and then they pulled the
contract
chair
ever.
out from under you, dude. That's insane.
But yeah, like on that team, I think like most of us, like me and Shazam, were going to school. I think
Yeah.
like I was going to college and working part-time on weekends,
Yeah.
and like we would practice just like later at night because
Yeah.
we'd come home from like school or work or whatever.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't the easiest, but I think it's possible for sure.
Okay.
But I think all of us kind of had backup plans for the most part. Like we weren't just like all in CS, like we still went to
Yeah.
school and like would work. So
Okay. So we're seeing a lot of kids now, 16, 17, 18. They're playing Counter-Strike like it's different now than what it was then.
there's
You know,
actually money now.
right. And
Yeah.
sometimes you're seeing kids like um potentially disregard those backup plans that you're talking about because they're all in on this esports thing, and maybe they have a veil over their head of like how realistic it is, how much opportunity there is, because there's not a lot of seats, at the table. And that does things to these kids, once they realize that, the window is closing and stuff. um it doesn't sound like you were too affected by that balance. I guess, right? It sounds like you were kind of more prepared.
Well, I also wasn't like trying to go pro. Like
Okay.
I played like fairly casually, and then
Yeah.
if you are good enough, like I wasn't even an IGL at one point. Like I was
Yeah.
actually picked up because I was just like killing people a lot, which is
Yeah.
surprising to most people today. But uh, yeah, it was just sort of like a
Nice little
hobby.
self dig.
Yeah.
It was like a hobby, and then it kept growing into more and more. And like our
Yeah.
first salary where we actually got paid was nothing. Like it
Yeah.
was below minimum wage by far. Um, so it's like I think when you're younger, depending on like your home situation, like you have more time to take a risky opportunity, right? Like school
Yeah.
will always be there, and depending on like how financially stable your family is, if you
Yeah.
don't have to actually work, like you probably just like live with your parents till you're over 25, and you can try for that dream, but there will be a point where you're probably going to want something like stable if gaming's not working out.
Sure.
But I mean, obviously, there's people with different situations where they can't afford to like play 9 hours a day and not work and or like not go to school, that type of stuff. So
Okay. Okay. I gotcha. Um, yeah, I mean that's pretty good stuff, honestly. Yeah, I think a lot of players just have unrealistic expectations, and they think like if they just sit here and play, like something will just come out of it. And it's like
Yeah.
it's not even time spent. It's about like how efficient it is and stuff like that. And I feel like being active outside of the game too, I think is really important. Just a lot of other things, just having a balance like we're talking about. So
Yeah.
Sorry. So let's move on to the blast premiere as we kind of wrap up the show here. So a lot of fun and interesting things have happened over here. Your fellow countryman Twists, obviously his team phase just go from strength to strength. Still one of the best teams in the world. How have you been following like the other teams and what they've been doing at Blast, or have you mostly been focused on yourself here?
I've watched like a fair amount of the matches, but you know, we've mainly been focused on like who we could play or could not play, and just mainly our group and ourselves.
Okay.
Well, you'll be going up against the winner of NIP versus EG. I think you're probably mostly preparing for NIP in this scenario. So looking at NIP, what are you guys looking to try and counteract from them? Obviously, this team still missing Device, has just not been there at all. The team performed somewhat decently at the major. They seem to always kind of be in a position of strength, but also one of the weaker teams. So is there anything particular that you guys have been trying to focus on for that potential matchup?
I mean, I'm not gonna say it publicly, but like, yeah, they're like not a bad team. I think even without Device, they've found like some fairly good form, despite like the circumstances. So, I mean, we're prepared for both matchups. I'll leave it at that.
Got it. Are there things coming out of the team that you feel that you guys definitely need to work on? Still with that shaky game against Complexity, and then having that loss against Navi, needing to focus with how you're gonna go forward and maintain some good strength here.
Yeah, we definitely have some focus. Like we're not like freaking out about the Navi game. Like it was a bad score line, but we rewatched it and it wasn't as bad as it seemed. Just a lot of individual mistakes or like some bad comms here and there. But like overall, fundamentally, we had like a fairly good game plan that should have worked if we actually played well. Yeah, just like we've been dealing with some jet lag and rust just from the player break and traveling, so I think we're prepared for the next two matchups. Like everyone seems pretty confident right now, and every day it keeps improving, and our map pool keeps getting better. So again, it's gonna take some time, but it's not too bad right now.
So if you do go on and win and advance to the next round, you're going to be playing against Heroic. They recently made a change where they removed refresh. How do you think that this new Heroic team looks? Are you trying to focus on them, or are you just focused on what your next matchup is going to be? Because you'll play them on Friday, and then it's be like a quick turnaround to the next day. So just wondering if you've like tried to spend any time looking even further.
Yeah, we've definitely like I've already prepared for both teams, so we know what to expect with Heroic. They play a fairly unique style to themselves. Mainly for that matchup, it's just not getting caught off guard by some of their like rotations and stuff. But again, I'm not gonna go into like too much detail. Just we're prepared for both.
Best, yeah.
We're prepared for both matchups.
That's a very good PR statement.
We know how both teams play.
Yeah.
So we're ready for the matches, and we're confident.
Cool. You'll have to see it. Who out of the whole event do you think has the best chance to win it? I'm curious. Besides, obviously yourselves.
I mean, just Navi or FaZe.
Yeah.
Is there even a final? I don't think there's a final.
Is there?
I'm pretty sure just like
is it just this?
Yeah.
Wait,
no one can like win it.
Right.
Wait.
Like top 3.
Yeah, this is all for seeding purposes.
Wait, what the? This is. I hate this event.
Where have you been?
Dude, I'm sorry. I expected Vince to have a winner. I didn't know that there's like first through thirds.
No, this is just like
Not
like a group
man.
stage. Yeah, it's literally just like a group stage league thing. It's not like
every
a
single
tournament
team receives money, and every single team receives a seeding in some capacity.
I hate this.
Either you go to the final or you go to the showdown. Like somebody is going somewhere. There's no punishment.
I need like a pamphlet on like Blast and to understand this system here. I need like some reading. Yeah,
I don't think it's that bad. Like the format's a little like whatever, but I think it's a good event straight into the player break. Like it's sort of a more like relaxed group stage. Like teams are figuring their shit out.
Sure.
I don't mind it for like after the player break.
I think it's really good. With EPL a week after, I think it's actually really good. Like precursor practice, just because you already know what your groups are going to be. It's possible you play some, like if EG beats NIP and you play EG, that is a common opponent that you'll face in that group. So it's some reps against somebody that you're going to see this season. So, I think there are positives to gain, and you guys are going to have some positives, not, having to actually be. You talked about jet lag. You won't be jet lagged for Pro League, which will be nice.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think overall this event is a positive, regardless of the format.
Yeah, Ryan.
I think the format is dumb, and I will stand on this. And I don't like there not being like a clear and concise winner out of an event. It's weird. It's weird.
Sure.
That's going to be my stance here.
Sure.
Anyways, and then after this, you're going to be looking at Pro League. You've got EPL, you've got Pro League, and then you're headed almost basically straight into the major. So, any concerns over burnout, or do you think this is like kind of a good schedule to ease you guys back in to get to the top form to have hit your peak right at the best time?
I wouldn't say there will be much burnout. I think we've figured the schedule out enough to where like people have enough time home, because like we're going home. Most of us are going home after Blast, so people have like about a week to 10 days home, and then we go to a little boot camp before Malta. So, and then I think we go Malta, then RMR.
Yeah.
And then after that, depending on if we have to play the showdown or not, then we would have to go home again anyways. And then we go to Rio after with like a boot camp before that too. So I don't think burnout's going to be a big issue for at least the second half of the season. I think we have pretty good schedule. Like it's not nearly as much as 2018, 2019.
Okay. Fair.
All right.
Looks like fall finals in November as well, so quite a bit of ways away.
Yeah. I think all the way in the major. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of silly. What are your thoughts on how the majors is run? Should they be like kind of the ultimate, like the final tournament of that like particular season, or like a section of the season? It feels weird, especially after like the last major. It was like, okay, congratulations on the major. Anyways, everyone come to IEM Dallas for another huge event to play in. Like, just it seems hard. It seems harsh.
It would be nice if they could like schedule it that way, but I think Blast, the world final, is also, it's like a pretty big event. So
yeah. And that's being
I'd
held in Abu Dhabi this year.
Yes,
it's a long flight.
That is a long flight.
Yeah, I mean that would be ideal. Like if you could have the major end off each season, and then like.
I feel like that's the consensus opinion. I don't know why it hasn't come to, but apparently the powers that be don't want it to be. So,
oh well,
it seems to be everybody's opinion. Kind of going back at Pro League, looking at your group, like how do you are you feeling pretty favorable? Because I mean, as you guys stack rank, I mean, probably Fury has been kind of slacking, and then you look at Cloud9, that's probably the best opposition there. You feeling pretty much like favorites in that one?
Yeah, I mean, Movistar losing Sun Pius is pretty big loss. I don't know much about their new player, but yeah, I mean, definitely we're pretty confident in that group. Cloud9, I'd say Cloud9 and us are probably the top two in that group.
And that's your last
on the form
match.
Fury is in. That's
So
our
the
last
seeding,
match. Sorry.
yeah. So that's your last match of the group. So that seeding might be pretty interesting if you guys kind of all win out. 'Cause,
Oh
I mean, you
yeah,
got,
true.
we might get a little interesting, tasty showdown for first place there. So,
Well, if you win your group, you go straight to semifinal, right?
off the top of my head, I think so.
That's usually how
Yes,
they used to
yes.
do
No,
it.
you go to
Yeah.
quarters. You go to quarters.
Oh, okay.
Because they extended. They
Oh yeah, they
because
extended
of
it.
live
I see.
agreement. Yep. Cool. So yeah, yeah, that is pretty interesting, honestly, how Movie Star will play. Fury's been really slumping, and then Eternal Fire is such a question mark, and obviously EG is where they are at the moment. So we'll see how things kind of grow with them the next couple months. But yeah.
I honestly think EG can play a little bit of spoiler here with this group. I think that they definitely, as long as they're going to come back for the Open Qualifier, they're going to win that, and then they're going to come back and they're going to be able to have enough time, I think, together. I think the hard part about Blast here is that Automatic has just been out and they haven't had the team that they were thinking of.
Sure.
But I think at Blast they'll have enough time together to probably provide a few good wins. We can see them challenge for third. I would hope to see them challenge for third. It'd be nice if we could get more American teams through. So we'll see.
Yeah. You never know. I don't want to get my hopes up. Like I have friends on EG, so
Right.
I don't want to see them
Automatic,
lose.
who you've played with for
You
quite
don't
a
get
while.
paid. You don't get paid for predictions, so
You don't have to.
you don't have to do it.
Well, all right. Well, Daps, I wanna say thank you for coming on to the show. As we're kind of reaching the end here, I really appreciate it. One of NA's most, I don't know, like you've just been around for a long time. You've been a huge pillar of the NA community, so it's always nice to get your thoughts and hear all of your opinions on this stuff.
I appreciate being invited to the show.
Yeah, we'd love to have you again. Obviously, not. We don't want to do you back to back. We'll make sure we'll get others in. Tell all the Liquid guys they can come on the show. We'll get them here. Yeah, we'll get a Liege on soon. Maybe during the break when you guys have a day off, if you ever actually get one. So with that, guys, make sure for everyone that's watching the channel, follow the YouTube channel where we're going to upload the VOD onto it. So that's Dust2 US on YouTube. Also this will be converted into a podcast. So go to any of wherever you get your podcasts from. You can go subscribe. Helps us out. Really appreciate it. Daps, once again, thank you so much for joining us. Lucas, thanks for filling in for Liam. And with that, I think we're gonna say goodbye and we'll see you guys soon.
See ya.
All right, dope.